I still remember the look on Travis's face when he said those words. We were standing near the buffet table at Grandma Rose's 80th birthday celebration, a lavish affair at the country club my uncle had rented out. Travis, my cousin, was wearing a tailored blue suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I was in the one decent dress I owned, a black knee-length number I'd found on clearance at Macy's and carefully maintained for special occasions. "You're too poor to be here," he said, not bothering to lower his voice. "I don't know why you even bother showing up to these things." The conversation around us stuttered to a halt. My Aunt Margaret gasped. Uncle Robert suddenly became very interested in the deviled eggs. My younger cousin Lily's eyes widened, and she looked down at her plate. No one said anything. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, but I kept my expression neutral. 6 years at Horizon Financial had taught me how to mask my emotions, especially in hostile environments. I was invited, Travis, by Grandma Rose herself. I took a sip of the cheap wine I'd brought myself, knowing I couldn't afford the premium open bar. But thank you for the warm family welcome. Travis snorted. Yeah, well, charity cases always get special treatment. Meanwhile, the rest of us work our asses off to actually build something. Some of us have responsibilities beyond just showing up with a $20 cake from the grocery store. The cake I'd brought had actually cost me $43, nearly a day's worth of food budget for me. I'd spent 3 hours on the bus to get to the specialty bakery that made Grandma's favorite lemon raspberry cake, the one she remembered from her childhood in Georgia. But I didn't say any of this. "Congratulations on your promotion," I said instead, keeping my voice level. "Vice President of Operations at Pinnacle Tech must be keeping you busy." He puffed out his chest. "Damn right. We're acquiring startups left and right. I just let 3 department heads go last week. Redundancies, you know how it is." "Oh, wait," he laughed. "You probably don't, do you? Not exactly management material over at, where is it you work again? Some little investment firm." "Horizon Financial," I said quietly. Right. The place that takes the accounts nobody else wants." He glanced at my shoes, noting the carefully concealed scuff on the left toe. "Well, I guess we all have to start somewhere." I felt my fingers tighten around my wine glass. I'd been at Horizon for 6 years, working 60-hour weeks, building a client base from nothing. I'd started as an assistant and worked my way up to financial advisor, handling the accounts of teachers, nurses, small business owners, people who didn't have millions but deserved just as much attention as those who did. Before I could respond, Grandma Rose's delicate hand appeared on my arm. At 80, she still stood straight as a rod, her silver hair elegantly coiffed, her eyes missing nothing. "Eliza, darling," she said, her southern accent still strong after 50 years in the Midwest. "Would you help me for a moment? These old legs aren't what they used to be, and I want to show you something in the garden." I smiled at her gratefully. "Of course, Grandma." As we walked away, I heard Travis mutter, "Always was her favorite. God knows why." The garden behind the country club was in full bloom, roses and hydrangeas creating pockets of color against a manicured green lawn. Grandma led me to a stone bench partially hidden by a trellis of climbing roses. "Sit with me a minute," she said, patting the space beside her. When I did, she took my hand in her small, veined one. "Now, I want you to know I heard what Travis said to you." I looked down. "It's nothing, Grandma. Travis has always been a pompous ass." She finished for me, making me laugh despite myself. "Yes, he has. Gets it from his father's side, not ours." She squeezed my hand. "But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about." From her small beaded purse, she pulled out an envelope. "I've been watching you, Eliza. All these years, while everyone else in the family was showing off and bragging about their big houses and fancy vacations, you've been quietly building something. Something real." I frowned. I don't understand." "I know you've been helping your clients invest wisely. Small accounts, people with just a little to save. The kind of people everyone else in finance ignores. I stared at her. How do you know that? She smiled. Because I'm one of them. After your grandfather died, I took the life insurance money to one of those big investment firms. The young man there barely looked at me, put my money in some standard portfolio, and I never heard from him again except for automated statements. Her eyes twinkled. So I moved most of it to you through a friend. Mabel Wilson? You've been handling her account for 3 years. My mind raced. Mrs. Wilson was one of my first clients, a retired teacher who'd come to me with a modest sum and a dream of traveling in her retirement. I had worked closely with her, creating a balanced portfolio that generated enough income for her to take one international trip each year while preserving her principal. Mrs. Wilson is your friend. My bridge partner for 40 years, Grandma said with a smile. And she's not the only one. I've been sending people your way for years now, watching how you treat them, how you care. She pressed the envelope into my hand. This is something I've been working on. A little project of mine. I want you to have it. Confused, I opened the envelope and pulled out several sheets of paper. As I scanned them, my breath caught. They were financial statements, but not just any statements. They showed a privately held investment account worth. I blinked, sure I was misreading the number. $3 million. I whispered. Grandma nodded. Give or take a few thousand, depending on the market today. I've been building it for decades, initially with your grandfather, then on my own. The family thinks I live on his pension and Social Security. She chuckled. They have no idea your grandfather and I were investing since we were in our 20s. We lived simply, saved aggressively. I stared at the papers in shock. But Grandma, this is your money. Your security. She waved a hand dismissively. I'm 80 years old, dear. I have more than enough for my needs in my personal accounts. This fund was always meant for something special. She tapped the paper. Look at the name of the fund. I looked down at the heading. The Elizabeth Rose Future Fund. That's my middle name, I said softly. Rose, after my grandmother. Yes, your grandfather, and I started this the day you were born. We saw something in you even then. A spark. She looked out at the garden. The others all had their advantages. Private schools, college funds, connections. You had none of that after your parents died. Yet look what you've accomplished on your own. My parents had been killed in a car accident when I was 12. With no life insurance and mountains of medical debt, I'd gone to live with my mother's sister, who had done her basic duty, but little more. I'd worked my way through community college, then state university, graduating with a finance degree and a mountain of student loans. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say you'll use it wisely, Grandma replied. There's a letter in there explaining everything. The money is yours now, to do with as you see fit. My only request is that you use at least part of it to build something meaningful, something that reflects who you are. I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision. Why now? Because I'm 80 years old, she said simply, and because I saw the way Travis spoke to you in there. It's time the playing field was leveled a bit. Her eyes, so like my mother's, held mine. You're the strongest one in this family, Eliza. Always have been. Now you'll have the resources to match that strength. I folded the papers carefully and returned them to the envelope, my mind spinning with possibilities. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I promise I'll make you proud. You already have, dear. She patted my hand. Now, let's go back inside before they send a search party. And don't say anything about this to anyone yet. Let's just keep it our secret for now. As we walked back toward the country club, my steps felt lighter than they had in years. For the first time since my parents died, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Possibility. Travis was holding court near the bar when we re-entered, regaling a group of cousins with stories of his corporate conquests. He barely glanced our way, but I noticed his slight smirk as he registered my return. So anyway, he was saying loudly, Pinnacle's planning a major acquisition next quarter. The board's keeping it quiet, but I'm leading the transition team. He took a swig of his scotch. We're looking at this small investment firm that's developed some interesting micro-trading algorithm. They don't even know they're in our sights yet. I paused, my attention caught. Micro-trading algorithms were rare among smaller firms. Most didn't have the technological resources or expertise to develop them effectively. Which firm? Someone asked. Travis tapped the side of his nose. Can't say yet. Insider trading and all that. But let's just say they won't know what hit them. He laughed. Half their staff will be redundant once we implement our systems. That's business, though. The strong survive, the weak get acquired or die off. Grandma squeezed my arm gently. Ignore him, she whispered. He's always been more bluster than brains. I nodded, but filed the information away. I had contacts throughout the financial industry, people I'd helped place in jobs over the years, clients who'd moved to other firms but still called me for advice. It wouldn't be hard to start asking some discreet questions. The rest of the party passed in a blur. I made my rounds, chatted with relatives I rarely saw, helped Grandma open her gifts, and avoided Travis as much as possible. All the while, I was acutely aware of the envelope tucked securely in my purse and the possibilities it represented. As the party wound down, I found myself near the coat check, waiting for my worn wool jacket. Travis appeared beside me, slightly unsteady from too many scotches. Leaving so soon, he asked. No after party for you? Some of us have work tomorrow, I replied evenly. He snorted. Right. Those exciting small accounts won't manage themselves. He leaned against the wall, studying me with narrowed eyes. You know, I never understood why Grandma has such a soft spot for you. The rest of us have actually made something of ourselves. I accepted my jacket from the attendant. We measure success differently, I guess. Do we? Because from where I'm standing, success is pretty easy to measure. He gestured to himself, then to me. Corner office, company car, vacation home in Aspen versus what? A one-bedroom apartment and bus pass. I slipped my jacket on, buttoning it slowly. You know, Travis, the interesting thing about life is how quickly things can change. I smiled at him, feeling a newfound confidence. Enjoy your corner office. I hear the view's best right before the fall. His eyebrows drew together in confusion, but before he could respond, I was already walking away, my grandmother's gift a comforting weight against my side. The next morning, I arrived at my desk at Horizon Financial at exactly 7:30 a.m., as I had every weekday for the past 6 years. My office was small but neat, with a view of the brick wall of the adjacent building. The furniture was functional rather than impressive, the computer equipment adequate, but not cutting edge. But today, everything looked different to me. I placed my purse in the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out Grandma's envelope. I'd spent most of the night reading through the detailed documentation she'd included. The Elizabeth Rose Future Fund had been professionally managed for nearly 30 years, with my grandmother making all the key decisions. It was diversified, tax-optimized, and remarkably well-structured. My grandparents had been far savvier investors than anyone in the family had realized. More importantly, the transfer paperwork was already complete. The fund was now legally mine. My desk phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was Martin Webb, my direct supervisor and the founder of Horizon Financial. Eliza, can you come to my office? There's something we need to discuss. I replaced the envelope in my drawer, locked it, and made my way to Martin's corner office. Martin was in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd taken a chance on me fresh out of college when larger firms had passed me over. He'd mentored me, taught me the business from the ground up, and given me the freedom to build my client base my way. When I entered, I was surprised to see him standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back. He usually greeted visitors from behind his desk with a warm smile. Today, his expression was somber. "Close the door, please," he said. I did as he asked, a sense of unease growing within me. "Is everything all right, Martin?" He sighed heavily and gestured for me to sit. "I'm afraid not, Eliza." He returned to his desk and sank into his chair. "I received a call last night from Lawrence Pierce at Pinnacle Tech." My heart skipped a beat. Pinnacle Tech Travis's company. "They've made an offer to acquire Horizon," Martin continued. "An aggressive offer with a very short timeline for response." I gripped the arms of my chair. "What kind of offer?" "The kind that's difficult to refuse," he said quietly. "They valued the company at $12 million. It's more than fair, to be honest. But the terms—" He shook his head. "They want our client list, our proprietary trading systems, and our micro-investment platform. They've made it clear they have little interest in retaining most of our staff." The micro-investment platform. That was my project, the one I'd been developing for the past 3 years. It allowed small investors to participate in markets that typically required much higher minimum investments. It wasn't flashy, but it was effective, and our clients loved it. "You're selling?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Martin removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I'm 67, Eliza. I've built this company from nothing over 30 years. My wife has been fighting for me to retire for the past 5, and $12 million would secure our retirement very comfortably." He looked at me directly. "But I didn't build Horizon just to see it dismantled for parts. So what are you going to do?" "I've asked for 48 hours to consider their offer," he said. "And I wanted to speak with you before making any decisions." "Me? Why?" He smiled slightly. "Because you're the heart of this place, Eliza. You've built our small investor program from the ground up. The micro-investment platform was your idea, your design. And your clients are some of our most loyal." He leaned forward. "If there was any way for you to take over, to keep Horizon independent, I'd much prefer that to selling to Pinnacle." I stared at him, my mind racing. "Are you offering to sell Horizon to me?" "I would, in a heartbeat. But I know your financial situation, Eliza. You're brilliant with money for others, but with your student loans and supporting your aunt through her cancer treatments last year." He shook his head. "I can't imagine you have access to that kind of capital." The envelope in my desk drawer seemed to pulse with possibility. $3 million wouldn't be enough to buy Horizon outright, but it could be enough for a significant down payment, especially if Martin was willing to own or finance part of the deal. But did I want to commit my grandmother's gift to this? Did I want the responsibility of running an entire investment firm? Could I compete with a corporate giant like Pinnacle if they really wanted our technology? "I need some time to think," I said finally. Martin nodded. "Take the day. But I'll need to give Pierce an answer by tomorrow afternoon." He put his glasses back on. "For what it's worth, I think you'd be a remarkable leader for this company. You understand what makes us special in ways that Pinnacle never could." I returned to my office in a daze, my mind whirling with possibilities and risks. I pulled out my phone and texted Grandma, "Need to talk. Important decision to make. Can I come over this evening?" Her reply came almost immediately. "Dinner at 6. Bring appetite and questions." I spent the rest of the day in a fog, going through the motions with my clients while my mind raced through scenarios. By 5 o'clock, I had more questions than answers, but I knew one thing for certain. I didn't want to see Horizon dismantled, its unique approach to serving smaller investors lost in Pinnacle's corporate machine. Grandma lived in a modest 2-bedroom condo in a quiet suburb. Her furnishings were elegant but not ostentatious, collected over a lifetime of careful choices rather than impulsive spending. When I arrived, the scent of her famous pot roast filled the air. "Right on time," she said, opening the door before I could knock. "Come in, dinner's almost ready." "Over pot roast, roasted potatoes, and green beans." I explained the situation with Horizon, Pinnacle's offer and Martin's unexpected suggestion. Grandma listened without interrupting, her bright eyes focused intently on me. When I finished, she dabbed her lips with her napkin and sat back in her chair. "So," she said, "you have a chance to save the company that gave you your start, protect your clients, and stick it to your arrogant cousin all at once." A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Sounds like an opportunity to me." I couldn't help but laugh. "When you put it that way, it does. But Grandma, it's not that simple. Even with your gift, I'd need to finance at least 9 million more. That's an enormous debt to take on." "Is it?" she asked. "Tell me about Horizon's financials." I outlined the company's revenue, profit margins, growth trajectory, and market position. As I spoke, I realized I knew these figures as intimately as I knew my own finances. I'd been paying attention all these years, absorbing the business side while building my client relationships. When I finished, Grandma nodded. "And what would you do differently if you were in charge?" "I'd expand the micro-investment platform," I said without hesitation. "There's a huge untapped market of younger investors who want to participate in areas traditionally reserved for the wealthy: private equity, specialized real estate investments, even venture capital on a small scale. Our technology makes that possible, but we've been conservative in rolling it out." "Why?" "Martin's cautious by nature, and we've had limited capital for expansion." I leaned forward, warming to the subject. "But the platform works. Our early adopters are seeing returns comparable to much larger investors, with significantly lower fees. If we could scale it up, market it properly." "You could democratize investing," Grandma finished for me. "Make it accessible to everyday people." "Exactly." I felt a surge of excitement, then reality crashed back. But Pinnacle doesn't care about any of that. They just want our technology to fold into their existing platforms, which cater exclusively to high-net-worth clients. "So they'd be eliminating competition in a market they don't even serve," Grandma observed shrewdly. "Precisely." I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. "But what choice does Martin have? He's ready to retire, and Pinnacle's offer is good for him personally." Grandma rose and went to a small secretary desk in the corner of her dining room. She returned with a leather portfolio and placed it in front of me. "Open it," she said. Inside was a stack of papers, legal documents from the look of them. I scanned the first page and felt my heart rate accelerate. "Grandma, this is incorporation paperwork for a private investment company. Elizabeth Rose Capital Holdings." I looked up at her in confusion. "I don't understand." "Keep reading," she urged. As I flipped through the documents, the picture became clear. My grandmother hadn't just set aside money for me. She'd created a legal entity, complete with all necessary registrations and licenses to operate as an investment holding company. The paperwork was dated 6 months ago. "You've been planning this," I said, amazed. "But how did you know I'd need it?" She smiled enigmatically. "I didn't know exactly what opportunity would arise, but I've learned in my 80 years that fortune favors the prepared." She tapped the papers. "Elizabeth Rose Capital Holdings is fully registered and operational. It has one shareholder, you, and its first asset is the 3 million we discussed. But even with this structure in place, I'd still need to secure major financing to buy Horizon," I said. "Perhaps." She rose again and returned to her desk, bringing back another folder. "Or perhaps not." This folder contained bank statements and investment portfolios, not her personal ones, but those belonging to many of my clients: Mrs. Wilson, Mr. Abernathy, the Johnsons, all clients I'd worked with closely over the years, helping them grow their modest savings into respectable nest eggs. "I don't understand," I said again. "I've been talking to your clients," Grandma explained. "Not all of them, just the ones I know personally, which is quite a few, as it turns out. Did you know that Mrs. Wilson has been telling everyone at the senior center about her amazing financial advisor? The one who helped her afford those trips to Europe while her friends are stuck taking cruises to the Bahamas. I felt a warmth spread through me. She's been very kind. She's been evangelical, Grandma corrected. And so have many others. They trust you, Eliza, not just with their money, but with their dreams. She gestured to the papers. Each of these represents a client who has expressed interest in investing in whatever venture you might undertake next. I did a quick calculation based on the figures in front of me. This is over $5 million in potential investment. From ordinary people who believe in you, Grandma confirmed. Add that to my $3 million and you're already at $8 million. If Martin is willing to finance even part of the remaining amount, I could actually do this, I whispered. You could, she agreed. The question is, do you want to? Did I? The prospect was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I'd be taking on enormous responsibility, not just for a business, but for the financial well-being of all these people who trusted me. I'd be going head-to-head with Pinnacle, a corporate giant with resources I couldn't match. But I'd also be protecting what made Horizon special. I'd be preserving and expanding a vision of financial services that put regular people first. And yes, if I was honest with myself, I'd be proving Travis wrong in the most dramatic way possible. I looked up at my grandmother, this remarkable woman who had seen something in me worth nurturing long before I saw it in myself. Yes, I said firmly, I want to do this. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then let's get to work. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of activity. I met with Martin first thing the next morning, laying out my proposal. He was stunned initially, then increasingly enthusiastic as I explained the financial backing I had secured. You've been planning this? He asked, amazed. Let's just say I've been preparing for an opportunity, I replied. The question is, are you willing to own or finance part of the purchase price? I can put $8 million down immediately, but I'd need terms on the remaining $4 million. His eyes widened at the figure. $8 million in cash? Eliza, how on earth? I have investors who believe in Horizon's mission, I said simply. After some negotiation, we struck a deal, $8 million up front, with the remaining $4 million financed over 5 years at a favorable interest rate. Martin would stay on as a consultant for 6 months to ease the transition, and would retain a small equity stake to give him additional upside if the company prospered. By Thursday afternoon, we had signed a letter of intent, and Martin had called Lawrence Pierce at Pinnacle to decline their offer. By Friday, our lawyers were drawing up the formal purchase agreement. By the following Wednesday, Elizabeth Rose Capital Holdings was the majority owner of Horizon Financial, with me as CEO. It all happened so quickly that I barely had time to process the enormity of what I'd done. One moment, I was a financial advisor with a small office and modest aspirations. The next, I was running a company with 28 employees and over $200 million in assets under management. The first month was a blur of meetings, legal paperwork, staffing decisions, and client communications. I worked 18-hour days, sleeping on the small couch in my new office more often than in my own bed. But through it all, I felt a sense of purpose and clarity I'd never experienced before. I assembled a leadership team from Horizon's existing staff, promoting those who shared my vision for making sophisticated investment strategies accessible to everyday people. We expanded our marketing efforts, targeting teachers, nurses, small business owners, and others typically overlooked by traditional financial firms. And I poured resources into the micro-investment platform, hiring additional developers to enhance its capabilities and security. 3 months into my tenure as CEO, I received an email from Travis. My first instinct was to delete it unread, but curiosity got the better of me. Heard you somehow managed to block our acquisition of that little firm. Didn't know you had that kind of pull. Guess even the bottom feeders stick together. See you at Thanksgiving. Try to dress appropriately this time. I laughed out loud in my office, startling my assistant who was delivering my afternoon coffee. Good news, she asked. I shook my head, still smiling. Just family stuff. I closed the email without responding. Travis clearly had no idea that I wasn't just blocking the acquisition. I was now his direct competitor. Let him find out in due time, I thought. Some revelations were worth waiting for. 6 months after taking over Horizon, I launched our expanded micro-investment platform to considerable industry attention. Our approach of opening previously exclusive investment categories to small investors was controversial within traditional financial circles, but wildly popular with our target demographic. Our client base grew by 40% in the first quarter after launch. Our assets under management increased by $100 million, and our profit margins, while still modest compared to the giants of the industry, were steadily improving. Martin, who had stayed on as a consultant as planned, was amazed by the transformation. "I always knew you were talented," he told me over lunch one day, "but I had no idea you had this kind of vision or determination." I smiled. Neither did I until I was tested. "Well, whatever lit that fire in you, I'm grateful for it," he said, raising his glass in a toast. To the new horizon, bigger, better, and still true to its roots. I clinked my glass against his. "To new horizons," I agreed. That evening, as I finally left the office at a reasonable hour for once, I called my grandmother. "Are you free for dinner this weekend?" I asked when she answered. "I want to show you some numbers." "Numbers and dinner? You certainly know how to tempt an old lady," she laughed. "Saturday at 6. I'll cook." "No, let me take you out this time," I insisted. "We have something to celebrate." On Saturday, I picked Grandma up in my new car, nothing flashy, but considerably more comfortable than the public transit I'd relied on for years. I took her to Alessandro's, an upscale Italian restaurant where I'd recently opened a corporate account. Over Antipasto, I showed her the latest figures for Horizon. Our growth, our expanded client base, our improving financials. She studied the numbers carefully, asking pointed questions that reminded me where my own financial acumen had originated. "You've done remarkably well," she said finally, handing the folder back to me. "Better than I expected, and I expected quite a lot." "I couldn't have done it without you," I told her sincerely. She waved this away. "Nonsense. I provided some capital and connections, that's all. You've built this with your own mind and determination." She took a sip of her wine. "So what's next?" I hesitated, then pulled another folder from my bag. "I've been thinking about expansion. Not just growing our existing business, but strategic acquisitions of our own." Her eyebrows rose. "Oh, anyone I know?" "Not yet," I admitted, "but I've been researching smaller firms that align with our values, ones that might complement our services or help us enter new markets." She nodded approvingly. "Smart. Build from strength." We finished our meal, talking about family, her bridge club, and my rare moments of life outside work. As we waited for dessert, her expression turned more serious. "The family reunion is coming up next month," she said. "Memorial Day weekend at Uncle Robert's lake house, as usual." I grimaced. I'd been so busy with Horizon that I'd completely forgotten about the annual family gathering. "I don't know if I can get away," I hedged. "You can and you will," she said firmly. "For me, if nothing else. Besides," her eyes twinkled, "I think you might find it quite interesting this year." "Why is that?" "Just a feeling," she said cryptically. "Just a feeling." As I drove her home later that evening, I couldn't help wondering what she knew that I didn't. But with Horizon demanding my full attention, I pushed thoughts of the family reunion to the back of my mind. Whatever drama awaited there could wait. I had a company to build. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. I got to the office early, wanting to prepare for Travis's first day. I'd spent the weekend reviewing the folder he'd given me, analyzing pinnacle strategies and formulating our counter approaches. The information was indeed valuable, giving us a roadmap of exactly how they planned to target us over the next 6 months. At precisely 9 o'clock, my assistant knocked on my door. "Ms. Harrington, your cousin is here." I took a deep breath. Send him in, please. Travis entered my office wearing a crisp button-down shirt and slacks, professional but without the bespoke suits that had been his uniform at Pinnacle. He carried a leather portfolio and looked more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. "Good morning," I said, rising from my desk to greet him. "Ready to get started?" He nodded, his eyes taking in my office, the corner space that had once belonged to Martin, with its views of the city skyline. "Ready as I'll ever be." I gestured to the conference table by the window. "I've set up a temporary workspace for you there. HR will assign you a proper office this afternoon. But I thought we should start by going through Pinnacle's strategies together." "Makes sense," he said, moving to the table where I'd arranged the documents from his folder alongside my notes. We spent the next 3 hours dissecting Pinnacle's plans, with Travis providing additional context and insights that hadn't been captured in the written materials. Despite my initial reservations, I found him to be thorough, analytical, and surprisingly forthcoming about his former employer's weaknesses. "Their biggest blind spot," he explained, pointing to a marketing plan for targeting our client base, "is that they still think this is entirely about the technology. They don't understand that your clients stay with you because of the relationships you've built." I raised an eyebrow. That's quite an insight from someone who once dismissed our clients as accounts nobody wants. He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Like I said, I was being an ass. The truth is, I've been studying your business model for longer than you know. There's a reason I pushed so hard for that acquisition. And now you're helping us defend against the company that just fired you," I observed. "Ironic, isn't it?" A hint of the old Travis surfaced in his smirk. "Karma's a bitch." By lunchtime, we had outlined a comprehensive defense strategy, focusing on strengthening client relationships, accelerating our technology development in key areas, and creating retention incentives for our most valuable staff members. "This is good work," I acknowledged as we wrapped up. "You understand their playbook better than anyone could." He nodded, looking satisfied. 8 years at Pinnacle had to be good for something. I closed my notebook. "HR should have your paperwork ready. Your office will be on the east side, 3rd door down from the conference room. Not a corner office," I added with a small smile. "But the view is decent. Better than the view from my apartment living room, which is all I've been seeing lately," he replied dryly. As he gathered his materials, Travis paused. "I should mention, there's a monthly family dinner at Uncle Robert's next week. I wasn't planning to go, given everything, but if you'll be there—" "I will," I confirmed. "Grandma insisted." He nodded. "Then maybe I will too. Might as well face the music sooner rather than later." After he left for his meeting with HR, I sat at my desk, contemplating this new dynamic between us. There was still an undercurrent of tension, of course. Years of family history couldn't be erased by one business arrangement. But there was also something else emerging, a cautious professional respect that might, in time, evolve into something more constructive than our previous relationship. The next week passed in a blur of activity. With Travis's insights, we accelerated our defensive measures against Pinnacle's planned assault. We revamped our client communication strategy, fast-tracked security enhancements for our platform, and developed a retention plan for our key personnel. To my surprise, Travis threw himself into the work with genuine enthusiasm, often staying late and generating ideas that went beyond merely countering Pinnacle's moves. By Friday, he'd proven himself valuable enough that I'd begun to consider extending his contract beyond the initial 3 months. That evening, as I was preparing to leave for the weekend, he appeared in my doorway with a stack of reports. "Final versions of the client retention proposals," he said, placing them on my desk. I added some numbers on the projected ROI for each initiative. "Thank you," I said, impressed with his thoroughness. "Any plans for the weekend?" A shadow crossed his face. "Just preparing mentally for Uncle Robert's dinner on Sunday. First family gathering since, you know." I nodded sympathetically. "It won't be easy." No, he agreed. But it's necessary. He hesitated, then added, I've been thinking about what you said that day at Grandma's birthday. About how quickly things can change. I remember, I said quietly. You were right. He gave a short, humorless laugh. I just didn't expect it to happen to me. I considered him thoughtfully. In just a week, I'd seen glimpses of a Travis I'd never known existed. Someone capable of self-reflection, of admitting mistakes, of channeling his considerable intelligence towards something other than self-advancement. You know, I said, the interesting thing about change is that it's rarely just about circumstances. It's about how we respond to them. He nodded slowly. I'm beginning to see that. He straightened, his expression becoming more businesslike. Anyway, have a good weekend. I'll see you Sunday at Uncle Robert's. See you Sunday, I echoed. Uncle Robert's monthly family dinners were smaller affairs than the holiday gatherings, usually just immediate family and whoever happened to be in town. This Sunday, there were only about 15 of us, including Grandma Rose, who made a point of never missing these occasions. I arrived early to help Aunt Margaret with preparations and was setting the dining room table when Grandma appeared at my side. Travis is coming tonight, she said without preamble. I know, I replied, carefully arranging silverware. He mentioned it last week. She studied me with keen eyes. And how is that arrangement working out? Having him at Horizon. Better than expected, I admitted. He's been genuinely helpful. He knows Pinnacle's weaknesses intimately, and he's not holding back in sharing that knowledge. She adjusted a napkin that didn't need adjusting. And do you trust him? I considered this. Professionally, increasingly, yes. He has no loyalty left to Pinnacle, and he needs this opportunity to work out. Personally, I shrugged. That's more complicated. As family often is, she agreed. She patted my hand. Just remember what I told you about relationships being more valuable than deals. Sometimes the most important investment we make is in people, even the difficult ones. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, and moments later, Travis was being ushered into the living room by Uncle Robert. An awkward hush fell over the gathered family members. It was clear from their expressions that everyone knew about his professional downfall. To his credit, Travis faced them with dignity, accepting Uncle Robert's too hearty handshake and Aunt Margaret's overly sympathetic hug with equal composure. Good to see you all, he said, his voice steady. It's been an interesting few weeks. We heard, Cousin Lily's husband said bluntly. Tough break with Pinnacle. Travis nodded. It was, but sometimes what seems like a disaster turns out to be an opportunity. His eyes found mine across the room. I've been consulting with Horizon Financial. Eliza's been kind enough to give me a chance to apply my experience in a new context. All eyes swiveled to me, expressions ranging from shock to confusion to, in Grandma's case, quiet satisfaction. Is that right? Uncle Robert asked, looking between us as if trying to determine if this was some elaborate joke. It is, I confirmed. Travis has valuable insights into how larger firms operate. It's been a productive arrangement. Well, isn't that nice? Aunt Margaret said, clearly struggling to find the right word. Family helping family. Yes, Travis said, a hint of irony in his tone. Exactly that. The tension was broken by Grandma Rose announcing that dinner was ready, and we all moved to the dining room. Through some orchestration of Aunt Margaret's, Travis was seated directly across from me, with Grandma at the head of the table between us. Conversation during the meal was stilted at first, with everyone carefully avoiding direct mention of Travis's firing or my surprising decision to work with him. Instead, there was much discussion of Cousin Lily's children's school achievements and Uncle Robert's golf game. But as the main course was served, Aunt Margaret apparently decided that the elephant in the room needed addressing. So, Travis, she said with forced cheerfulness, will you be staying in finance, do you think? Or perhaps exploring other fields? Travis set down his fork deliberately. That depends on a number of factors, he said evenly. Right now, I'm focusing on the consulting work with Horizon. After that, he shrugged. We'll see. It's just such a shock, she persisted. You were always so established at Pinnacle. I remember at Rose's birthday, you were talking about becoming COO within the year. I saw a muscle tighten in Travis's jaw, but his expression remained controlled. Plans change, he said simply. Sometimes for the better. And how are things at Horizon, Eliza? Uncle Robert asked, clearly trying to shift the focus. Business continuing to grow. I nodded. We've had a strong quarter. Our micro-investment platform is gaining traction, and client acquisition remains ahead of projections. That's wonderful, Aunt Margaret said with genuine warmth. She'd been much more supportive since my financial circumstances had improved. You know, we were just saying to the Hendersons last week how proud we are of you. Travis made a small noise that might have been a suppressed laugh. I caught his eye, and something passed between us, a shared recognition of Aunt Margaret's fair-weather support. The Hendersons, I asked innocently, aren't they the couple who just sold their shipping business for a considerable sum? Aunt Margaret had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Well, yes, they're looking for investment opportunities, actually. I might have mentioned your firm. How thoughtful, I said. The conversation moved on, but throughout the meal, I found myself repeatedly catching Travis's eye, sharing silent moments of recognition whenever a family member said something particularly transparent or self-serving. It was strange to suddenly be on the same side of these dynamics after years of being at odds. After dinner, as everyone dispersed into smaller conversation groups, Travis and I ended up on the back patio, each with a glass of Uncle Robert's expensive scotch. Well, he said after a moment, that was less excruciating than I expected. I smiled. The family has always been good at polite pretense. True, though I've never been on this side of it before. He swirled the scotch in his glass. It's illuminating, isn't it? I agreed. Amazing how quickly their attitudes adjust to changing circumstances. He gave me a sidelong glance. Present company excluded, it seems. I raised an eyebrow. Meaning, you could have enjoyed watching me squirm tonight. Instead, you made it clear we're working together successfully. He shook his head, slightly. That was generous, given our history. It was truthful, I corrected. You've been an asset to Horizon this past week. He accepted this with a nod. Still, thank you. We stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the city lights in the distance. Do you think you'll ever come back to established finance? I asked finally, once the consulting contract ends. He considered this. I don't know. The industry feels different now, seeing it from the outside. More ruthless than I realized when I was the one doing the ruthless things. He glanced at me. Or maybe that's just what losing feels like. It doesn't have to be about winning and losing, I suggested. There are other ways to measure success. So I'm learning. He took a sip of his scotch. Your grandmother said something interesting to me earlier. She said that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you build that lasts. I smiled. That sounds like Grandma. She also said you understood that instinctively, which is why you'll always have something I lack. That surprised me. What did she mean? He shrugged. I'm still figuring that out. But watching you this week, I'm beginning to get an idea. Our conversation was interrupted by Uncle Robert calling everyone in for dessert. But Travis's words stayed with me throughout the remainder of the evening. There was a quality to them that suggested genuine reflection, not just the temporary humility of someone down on their luck. The following weeks saw a deepening of our unexpected professional alliance. Travis's insights proved increasingly valuable as we refined our strategy against Pinnacle's planned offensive. He had an uncanny ability to anticipate their moves, often predicting their approach before they implemented it. By the time his initial 3-month contract was nearing its end. We had not only successfully defended against Pinnacle's attempts to poach our clients and staff, but had actually managed to attract several of their mid-tier clients who were dissatisfied with the direction of the company following the restructuring. "The Henderson account is officially ours," Travis announced one afternoon, entering my office with a satisfied expression. "Signed the transfer papers this morning." The Hendersons, the same couple Aunt Margaret had mentioned at the family dinner, had indeed been looking for new investment opportunities and had ultimately decided to move their considerable portfolio to Horizon after meeting with our team. "That's a significant win," I acknowledged. "Their portfolio is sizable. And more importantly, Pinnacle wanted them badly," Travis added, taking a seat across from me. "Lawrence Pierce personally tried to retain them." I smiled. "Your former boss?" "The very same." There was undisguised satisfaction in his voice. Apparently, they told him they preferred our more personalized approach to wealth management. I leaned back in my chair. "We're building something meaningful here, Travis. Something that matters to people beyond just the numbers." He nodded thoughtfully. "I'm starting to understand that." He hesitated, then added, "My contract is up next week." "I know," I said. We'd both been aware of the approaching deadline, but neither had brought it up until now. "I've had some inquiries," he said. "2 firms in Boston, 1 in Chicago. All respectable positions." "That's good," I said, feeling a surprising twinge of disappointment. "You've rebuilt your reputation quickly." He nodded. "Apparently, not everyone shares Pinnacle's view of my capabilities." He studied me for a moment. "But I'm not sure I want to go back to that world. The one where clients are just numbers and success is measured solely in acquisition totals." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you saying?" He leaned forward. "I've been thinking about your client education initiatives, the programs you've developed to help small investors understand complex market mechanisms, to make informed decisions rather than just following advisor recommendations blindly. What about them?" "They could be expanded," he said, enthusiasm growing in his voice. "Developed into a more comprehensive platform, maybe even a separate division within Horizon, focused exclusively on financial literacy and investor education." I studied him with growing interest. This was a side of Travis I'd never seen before. Genuinely excited about an idea that wasn't centered on personal advancement or impressing others. "And you would want to be involved in this expansion?" I asked carefully. "I'd want to lead it," he said directly. "Build it from the ground up, with your backing and Horizon's resources." I considered this. It was an intriguing proposition. Our educational initiatives had always been successful, but limited in scope due to resource constraints. With Travis's experience and contacts, combined with his newfound appreciation for our approach to client relationships, such a division could significantly enhance Horizon's offering. "It would mean a permanent position," I pointed out. "Working for me, not just with me." He met my gaze steadily. "I'm aware of that." "And significantly less prestige than your former role at Pinnacle." "Also aware of that," he said with a slight smile. "But maybe prestige isn't what I need right now. Maybe what I need is to build something meaningful, something that lasts." Grandma's words echoed back to me. I found myself smiling. "Draft a proposal," I said. "Business plan, resource requirements, projected outcomes. Have it on my desk by Friday." His face lit up with genuine excitement. "You won't regret this, Eliza." "I haven't agreed to anything yet," I reminded him, "but I'm willing to consider it." After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, contemplating the strange journey that had brought us to this point. 2 years ago, Travis had dismissed me as a charity case, too poor to belong at our family's gatherings. Now he was eager to work for me, to build something under my leadership. Life did have a way of coming full circle. On Friday afternoon, Travis delivered a meticulously prepared proposal for what he was calling the Horizon Financial Literacy Initiative. It was comprehensive, well-researched, and surprisingly aligned with Horizon's core values. "This is impressive," I told him after reviewing it over the weekend. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this." "I have," he agreed. "I believe in it." Those simple words carried significant weight coming from Travis. Throughout his career, he had been known for his pragmatism, his focus on results rather than ideals. To hear him express belief in a project centered on education and empowerment was evidence of a profound shift in his perspective. "There's one thing missing from your proposal," I said. He frowned. "What's that?" "The compensation structure." I opened my desk drawer and withdrew a folder. "This is my counterproposal. Same project, same scope, but with one key difference." I handed him the folder. "I'm offering you an equity position." His eyes widened as he scanned the document. 5% ownership stake in Horizon? Eliza, this is generous." "It's conditional," I clarified, "based on the success of the initiative over the next 2 years. Meet the benchmarks outlined in Section 3, and the equity vests. Fall short, and it reverts to Horizon." He nodded slowly, still processing the offer. "This would make me a partner, not just an employee." "A junior partner," I emphasized. "But yes, with the potential for greater equity down the line, depending on performance and contribution to Horizon's overall growth." He looked up from the document, his expression unreadable. "Why?" I considered my answer carefully. "Because, despite our complicated history, I believe you have something valuable to contribute to what we're building here. And because I've seen genuine change in you these past few months, a shift from self-interest to something more sustainable." "You're taking a significant risk," he observed. "I am," I agreed. "But calculated risk is what we do in this business, isn't it?" A slow smile spread across his face, not the smug smirk I'd seen so often in the past, but something more genuine. "Indeed it is." He extended his hand across the desk. "Partners, then." I took his hand, sealing our unexpected alliance. Partners. 1 year later, to the day, I stood on the small stage in Horizon's newly expanded offices, addressing our entire staff of now 68 employees. Behind me was Travis, alongside Martin and the rest of our leadership team. "Today marks not just the first anniversary of our financial literacy initiative," I said, "but a milestone in Horizon's evolution as a company. What began as an idea that financial empowerment should be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy, has grown into a core component of our identity." I gestured to the visual display showing the initiative's impressive first-year results. Over 2,000 individuals trained through our programs, a 94% client retention rate, and a 35% increase in new client acquisition among demographics traditionally underserved by the financial industry. None of this would have been possible without the vision and leadership of our Director of Financial Education, I continued, turning to acknowledge Travis. His commitment to transforming how we approach client education has fundamentally changed Horizon for the better. Applause filled the room as Travis stepped forward to say a few words. As he spoke about the initiative's future plans and thanked the team members who had contributed to its success, I caught Grandma Rose's eye in the audience. She gave me a small, knowing smile and a subtle nod of approval. After the formal presentations, as staff mingled over refreshments, Grandma made her way to my side. "Quite a transformation," she observed, watching Travis engaged in animated conversation with several team members, both of the company and the man. I nodded. He surprised everyone, myself included. The initiative has been more successful than any of us projected, and he's been instrumental in that success. "And on a personal level?" she asked shrewdly. I considered this. "We'll never be best friends," I admitted. "Too much history. But we've found a way to work together that brings out the best in both of us. There's respect there now and a shared vision." "That's more valuable than friendship sometimes," she said wisely, "especially in business." "He's coming to dinner tonight," I told her. I know you had to miss his presentation last month because of your bridge tournament. I'm looking forward to it, she said. I want to hear all about this expansion you're planning. Later that evening, as the three of us sat around my dining table, so different from the one I'd owned when this journey began, I found myself reflecting on the remarkable path that had led us here. I've been thinking, Travis said, setting down his wine glass, about that day at Grandma's birthday. What I said to you. I tensed slightly. We rarely discussed that incident directly, though it hovered in the background of our interactions. You don't need to, I began. I do, he interrupted gently. I need to say this. He met my eyes directly. I was wrong. Not just factually wrong about your potential or your worth, but fundamentally wrong in how I measured value. I was too focused on external markers of success to see the real strength in what you were building. Grandma Rose watched us both with quiet intensity, saying nothing. Thank you for saying that, I replied, genuinely touched by his sincerity. And thank you, he said, for not writing me off when you had every reason to, for seeing potential in me when I couldn't see it myself. He raised his glass to second chances and to building something that lasts. To building something that lasts, Grandma and I echoed, raising our glasses in return. As we clinked our glasses together, I thought about how far we'd come, from that painful moment of humiliation at the family reunion to this point of mutual respect and shared purpose. The journey hadn't been easy, and there had been moments of doubt along the way, but the destination had proven worth every challenge. 2 years ago, when Travis had said those cutting words, "You're too poor to be here," I could never have imagined that I would one day not only own the company that fired him, but would choose to bring him into that company as a partner. Life did indeed have a way of coming full circle, sometimes in the most unexpected and satisfying ways. And in that moment, sitting in my beautiful home with my grandmother and my cousin-turned-business partner, I realized that the true victory wasn't in proving Travis wrong or even in my professional success. It was in the growth we'd both experienced, the perspectives we'd gained, and the legacy we were now building together. Something meaningful that would outlast either of our individual journeys. That, I thought as I looked at Grandma Rose's proud smile, was a form of wealth that no financial statement could ever capture. And it was richer by far than anything I could have imagined on that painful day 2 years ago.